do you think Donegal made winning against Tyrone in McCool Park?
It was a big one because of the fact that Michael Murphy didn't score for the first time in 7 years. Even he did a huge amount of good work in the second half. Ryan McHugh didn't score. He was well helped by Conor Myler, who's done a job on him before. Patrick McGrady didn't start, didn't come on either. Owen Ban Gallagher, who'd been other of the key players, didn't have a good day. Neil McGee went off at half time. So all of that when you factor all that in, a lot of fellas stood up, like Hugh McFadden, Kieran Thompson, Micheál Langan, Caelan McGonigal, that people within Donegal would know pretty well, but maybe around the country wouldn't be as familiar with. And they showed leadership in a very tough conditions against a very good team. And so I think because of that, Donegal will take a huge amount of it because they will know they have a lot of room for improvement, but they still came through against a strong team.
Yeah, so why do you think Donegal were able to be the better team that day? As you mentioned, they've curbed the influence of some of the bigger players, and some players didn't even play, like Paddy McBurdy.
Yeah, I think just Donegal are very battle hardened now. A lot of it's interesting when you look back to the Rory Gallagher's final year as manager, and they got an awful hammering by Galway in the qualifiers in Markievicz Park. And a lot of Micheál Langan, Jason McGee, Jamie Brennan, Stephen McMenamin, all those fellas played then, and they were very young. They were thrown in very early, and it was tough going for them at the start. But now they've come through a lot. They've won 2 Ulster titles in a row. They didn't get out of the Super 8s, but they've played in both the Super 8s so far. And they're just seasoned now. And I think there seems to be constant change within Tyrone, even though a lot of those fellas, the likes of Petey Hart around, like a few of Tyrone's key players didn't play well, particularly Peter Hart, Tierney McCann, a few of those guys have been around a while. But they're bringing in, like Conor McKenna's come in. He didn't make the impact people thought he would make. Darragh Canavan's come in. He played very well, but he's very young. And it's just, I think Donegal are just further down the road than Tyrone at the moment, even though Tyrone were in All-Ireland final a couple of years ago. I think there's kind of a new Tyrone team coming. Whereas this Donegal team is probably at its peak because the likes of Michael Murphy doesn't have a huge amount of years left. Like he's 31. He's playing for Donegal since he was 17. Neil McGee is probably his last year. He's 35, I think. So I think this Donegal have the perfect mix now of a lot of very good players in their mid-20s. The more senior players still have football left in them, and they have pace and power and a lot of big men. And big men was pivotal against Tyrone too.
Yeah, so which one of that young crop, as you're talking about, your Caelan McGonigals, your Hugh McFaddens, your Michael Langans, and Kieran Thompsons, which one of them do you think actually would have performed the best that day for Donegal?
Micheál Langan, I think, because he's a good bit younger than Kieran Thompson. Kieran Thompson was outstanding too, but I think Micheál Langan offers a huge amount. I really like Jason McGee as well. Like Jason McGee has had a lot of injuries this year, and he just came off the bench the last day. But I do think it wasn't mentioned enough, but Hugh McFadden was really important, because it was such a horrible day, and he did so much hard work. Just real horsing around the middle, and being in the right place at the right time and doing the simple things well. But they would stand out to me. In a way, I think maybe Kerry's win over Cork really stands to Donegal for a couple of reasons. Because Kerry are an All-Ireland contender, they're gone. And so are Tyrone and Monaghan, 2 teams that give Donegal a lot of trouble, are now gone. After this weekend, Mayo or Galway will be gone. So you do see a lot of teams you'd be worried about gone. Obviously, Dublin is a big one that will still be there. But also, I think Kerry losing will mean nobody will be complacent. Among the big teams, nobody will be taking any game for granted. Even though Donegal should beat Armagh, I'm sure Cork will be mentioned, that you can't take anything for granted. That ordinarily, a lot of people would expect Kerry to win that game by at least 10 points. Maybe on a dry day they would have. But the fact that they lost means I think you will have players and management on guard in every game now.
Yeah. Which one of the Tyrone players impressed you the most that day?
Oh, Tyrone. Well, even though he was taken off, I've just been very excited about Darragh Canavan since I saw him at under 17 level. Like, I think he is his father's son. Like, he moves like, and he finishes like, and he's got, the thing that stood out most with Peter Canavan was his intelligence. Like, he was so smart on and off the ball. And Dara seems to have that now. Like, it was a mix up in the Donegal defence, but the finish was still brilliant, particularly on a wet day like that. The anticipation, the movement, and then the shot. Like, it was top drawer. And, I think it was a mistake to take him off. Darren McCurry, I thought, was superb, and I could not understand why he was taken off. Like, he gave Owen Ban Gallagher huge problems, and Owen Ban Gallagher on his day is one of the best defenders in the country. I think he's still trying to get back up to the level he was at before his injury, but he did find Darren McCurry very, very, very hard to handle. I think within Tyrone as a major bone of contention why he was taken off.
Yeah. Do you think that one is going to make Donegal all Ireland contenders? Do you think there's a good chance now that they can go and bring Sam back to the Hills?
I thought they were all Ireland contenders all along, to be honest. Because, I even tweeted about this a few weeks ago that whoever won the Tyrone Donegal game will go to the All Ireland final, and people were saying, I got a few comments back that you're mad, they'll have to go through Dublin. But I actually think my feeling was Donegal in particular will have the tools to beat Dublin, but I had a feeling it would be like 2014 that Kerry would beat Donegal in the final. Now Kerry are either way. But the reason I think Donegal could trouble Dublin is, even in all the interviews that Dublin players did after winning the 5 in a row, they talked about the pressure that was on them and the mental toll it took. I think people underestimate what last year took out of that Dublin team, because it was making history, and it's very hard for them to have that same edge and drive again, particularly in a winter championship. And at Croke Park, where they've no packed Hill 16, when you have a different manager, you have no Diarmuid Connolly, no Jack McCarthy. Of course, they still have excellent players, Conor Callan, Brian Fenton, etc. But I still think if Dublin are going to be caught over the next few years in this really strange year, in this really weird championship, this is the year they'll be caught.
Yeah. So, yeah. Do you think the Donegal team has improved significantly since that defeat to Mayo in the Super 8s last year?
Well, my guess is they have, but it's very hard to say because it's such a fragmented league. Because obviously it stopped in March, started up again for 2 games. They were brilliant against Tyrone. They made a lot of changes for Kerry, and they were awful down in Kerry. They were very good against Tyrone, even though some players weren't at their best. So you need to see more of them. My suspicion is they have improved, but I think Donegal will need all their big guns in the field. If they're to win the big one, they will need Patrick McCready back at full fitness. They will need Neil McGee fit again. I know he had to go off at halftime the last day. They would need more out of Jamie Brennan, who's been fairly quiet, I think, over the few games since the resumption. And Ryan McHugh, Murphy, obviously they are always their 2 main men. They'll need a lot out of them. Sean Patton's kickouts are a real weapon. And if you look around the goalkeepers that are left, there's no other than Stephen Cluxton. Like, nobody else has such a playmaker at the back now as Donegal do. And that's very significant, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, in Tyrone, do you think, it's maybe time for Mickey Hart to go leave it to another manager that can maybe freshen up the team over time? Or, do you think, Mickey Hart still has more to give in Tyrone?
Well, I think this comes down to what do you want from Tyrone? Like, if Tyrone want to win Ulster titles and they want to get to an All-Ireland semi-final or maybe a final, I think Mickey Hart is well capable of doing that in the years to come. But if they want to win an All-Ireland, I think his time is gone. I don't. It's 12 years now. Like, Mickey Hart, Tyrone will never have a manager like Mickey Hart again. They will never have anyone who wins 3 All-Irelands. And what was it, 6 Ulster titles on top of that. Like, he's been a phenomenon. He's been there for 18 seasons. But I think diminishing returns comes into play. I think, when he came in first, he had some guys that were there since the early 90s, like Chris Law and Peter Canavan. Then, the good under-21s, the likes of Brian McGuigan and Sean Kavanagh, came in and they won in 2003. By 2005 and 2008, there were a fair amount of new faces there. Like, it was kind of, particularly 2008, Canavan had moved on. He was such a significant figure. Then over the last decade, you've had the team of Petey Hart and Matty Donnelly, etc. But now they're very much the senior players, and they're coming into their twilight years. There's a new team coming, which will be backbone by the likes of Colin McShane. Will make a massive difference when he comes back. Derek Hanavan, God, my mind's gone blank. The guy that came back from Australia, Conor McKenna, who when he gets a league behind him is going to come on and leaps and bounds. Like I think we saw glimpses of him in the couple of games he played in the league, how good Conor McKenna can be. And I think there's a new team there, but I think there does come a time with every manager, you need a fresh voice in the dressing room. And Mickey Hart has been speaking in the Tyrone dressing room for 18 years. And there's no harm to move on. Like if you look around Ulster, the amount of Tyrone coaches and managers is unbelievable, both club and who've made their impact at inter-county level. There's a huge amount of coaching talent within Tyrone. And I think maybe just it's time to pass on the baton. I don't think genuinely that's been disrespectful to Mickey Hart. I think he's had a brilliant innings. And I think that everybody in Tyrone and everybody all around the country owes him a hell of a lot and has huge respect for him. But I think this is a good time for change. I think there is a new team coming, and a new team coming, I think, would benefit from a new manager.
Are you confident, as a Donegal man like myself, going into the Armagh game Saturday?
I'm confident. Well, I think Donegal will win, but I'm not sure if I'd say that I'd be confident. I think it could be a tight enough battle and they get through in the end. But I think, there's a couple of things. Both teams are in very different trajectories. Like, if Armagh have got promoted to Division 1, if they get to an Ulster final as well, they will think that's a really good year for them. Donegal stayed in Division 1. If they win Ulster and lose the All-Ireland semi-final, they won't think it's a good year. Like, Donegal are trying to win the All-Ireland. At the moment, Armagh trying to get to an Ulster final and hopefully win it. But an Ulster title, for a team that won them so easily in the noughties, now it's become a massive goal for them, because they have slipped a lot. But Donegal, I think, are just too professional in their attitude now to take their eye off the ball. And even though the Armagh have a lot of dangerous forwards, like the likes of Jamie Clark, Rory Grugan, there's Oisin O'Neill, Forker, Jarlath O'Barnes in midfield. There are a lot of people there that can kick scores and do a lot of damage. But that win over Derry in the last round was only Armagh's second win in an Ulster Championship game in 6 years. That shows you the difference between them and Donegal. Donegal are going for 3 in a row Ulster titles, whereas Armagh are going for a third win in Ulster in 6 years. So it's a big, big difference. And because of that, I think just because Donegal are a lot further down the road, I would be confident. I think they will win. But it might, it wouldn't surprise me with an hour in the clock that the game's still in the balance. But I think Donegal have 4 or 5 of the best players in Ireland. Armagh, do they have 1 or 2 of the best players in Ireland? At a push, maybe. But I think Donegal have more quality.
Which one of the Donegal players do you think will need to be at their best in order to get past Armagh? Any games Donegal have won over the last few years, if you're trying to decide after who's man of the match, generally it's always between the 2 same names, Michael Murphy and Ryan McHugh. So even though Donegal won very well without them being at their best the last day, I do think they will need to have big games this time again. And I think if you're looking at the bigger picture, I think Patrick McBrearty would need to be on the field at some stage, even if he's not fit enough to start, and make a contribution, because you will need Patrick. You will need Patrick down the road, and you might well need Patrick in the last quarter, because particularly the kind of conditions we're playing in at the moment, with his power and his accuracy and his ability to win the ball, it's a massive asset, and no defence would like him to seeing him come on the last 15 minutes. Do you think the Armagh footballers have a player, any of them, that are going to really cause harm to Donegal?
Well, their best player consistently over the last, roughly the last decade, has been Jamie Clark. And, Jamie Clark, I've met him a couple of times. He's a really interesting guy. Like, he's quite an enigmatic character. But he kind of a short fuse, and I think Donegal would test that. Like, if Stephen McMenamin goes on, and which he might well do, Stephen McMenamin has given David Clifford a lot of trouble. Like, Clifford has found him harder to handle than most defenders. And he has developed into a top class man marker, but he has an edge as well. He winds people up. Like Jamie Clark, on his day could snipe a goal or two. But I think he will be tested, and that short fuse will be tested.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you think the Armagh footballers have improved significantly since last season? Where they actually almost knocked out Mayo in the qualifiers, and yeah, they played their 2 games against Cavan, but ended up being on the wrong side of it.
No, I definitely think they've kicked on. Even the rage profile now, a lot of them are, they have a lot of, like, Kieran McGeeney would put huge emphasis on strength and conditioning. He would have as a player before as well, and when he was in Kildare too. And now, they've put a lot of hard work in over the years, and they're a big, powerful unit now. And they have kicked on. But I think, the most significant thing that happened to Armagh this year, even if Donegal end up hammering them, is they've got to Division 1. Because if you want to be competitive at the top level, especially consistently competitive, you have to be a Division 1 team. Like Mickey Hart said, I think it's about 10 years ago now, you can't win All Ireland from Division 2. And Donegal did come very close in 2014. They played that year in Division 2 and they got to the final. But generally, that is the case. Like, you do need to be playing the big teams week on week. And that's a big advantage Donegal have coming into this game. Like, you look at the caliber of opposition Armagh have played this year. They've played Division 2's teams in the league, and then they played Derry in the championship. No, they haven't played the same quality teams Donegal have played, and Donegal have been playing consistently over the years. So I think while Armagh have kicked on, they'll need next year in Division 1 behind them, and maybe to stay in Division 1, like not be a yo-yo team going up and down. They need a couple of years in the top flight to really get to the level where they want to be and where they used to be in the noughties.
Yeah. Now, do you think, is there anything Donegal can improve on, from that last game against Tyrone, if they want to push on, be convincing against Armagh?
Well, I think a clean sheet would be a big help because, they give up a very soft goal against Tyrone. Stephen McManaman had cleared the ball off the line. Like, they were very, that should really have been a Tyrone goal. So I think when down the line, like Dublin didn't score a goal at the weekend against Westmeath, which is unusual for them. But Dublin do tend to create a lot of goal chances, and they have a lot of brilliant goal finishers. So if you look at the only championship defeat Dublin have had since 2013 was against, since they won in 2013 was against Donegal in 2014. And Donegal didn't concede a goal that day. They scored 3 of their own. I think that is one of the keys to beating Dublin. You have to score goals, and you have to stop them scoring goals. So it's a good habit to get into. So I think a clean sheet would be a big one. I think, just getting. I don't think there's a huge amount of areas that were really flawed the last day. I think there's individual players that you want more out of them. But if you're talking about, their kickouts were very strong. They won midfield comfortably, which is always a massive battle. So I think just more of the same would improve some individual performances.
Yeah. But so do you think, that Keelan McGonigal, the fellow Buncrana man, is going to, be able to break into the traditional midfield of Jason McGee and Hugh McFadden as he did at the last game against Armagh?
From what we've seen so far this year, yeah, like he's been very, like he's very powerfully built. Like I think he's definitely put on a fair amount of muscle this year compared to other years, and. Now looking at his form, I would say he's definitely a definite starter. Like he's been really good, and he's definitely slipped under the radar. Like you haven't national. If you look at national media or national commentators or pundits, it's not something you hear mentioned very often. But he's definitely within the camp. You can see Declan Bonner rates him very highly, and you can see the other players have a lot of respect for him. And I think the way Donegal play. I think they don't want just two big men around the middle. No, they want whether it's Micheál Langan, Caleb McGonigal, Hugh McFadden, Michael Murphy, Kieran Thompson. They're all Jason McGee if he's fit. That's 5 or 6 guys who are well over 6 foot. So I think the way they play, I think that's the way they want around the middle third. They want a lot of bulk and size.
Yeah. So, do you think this game is effectively the Ulster final, because both teams on paper would be strong, Cavan or Down?
Well, being perfectly honest, I think Donegal Tyrone was the Ulster final. I think I can't see Donegal being beaten. Like I know, I don't think they'll be beaten. I can't see it happening because particularly the kind of weather we've had, things can be freakish. Like you could get a bad injury or you could get a red card because of a miss. On wet days, things do happen. But Donegal are comfortably better than Cavan, Down, or Armagh, the three teams that are left. So logically, Donegal should win. Donegal should win Ulster again. And part of it is, what I mentioned to you earlier. For Cavan, for Armagh, for Down, winning an Ulster title is massive. For Donegal is only a step along the road now because they've won back-to-backs. They're looking down the road. They really are. I think it could be a long time before Donegal get a shot at the All-Ireland like this because it's just this system, straight knockout. So your big team's gone already. And you, as I say, 3 teams that have a habit of troubling Donegal are gone: Tyrone, Monaghan, and Kerry.
Yeah. So, before we go, why on Sunday should I go out, get the Irish Daily Star, if I want to read the best coverage of the game?
Jesus, thanks for the plug, Patrick. Well, at weekends, in fairness, we pull out. One of the things, are you a media student, Patrick?
Yes, I'm a media student. Yes,
yeah. But one of the things within the media is the way newspapers in particular have changed. A Saturday paper is now the equivalent of the way Sunday papers used to be. You still have Sunday papers. So if you're working for a daily newspaper, you have to do the daily stuff, but you try and do a big package for a Saturday. And it's something different, columnists, etc. So I think our Saturday package, previewing games is strong. And a big part of that is a fellow Donegal man, Eamon McGee. But Eamon McGee has his own way of looking at football and looking at the world. And I think he's one of the best comms around. And hurling-wise, Ger Loughnane is the same. Ger is one of the great eccentrics, but he knows hurling inside out. And he's opinionated, and he can back up the opinions. And I think you need that. So I think people like strong opinions. I know, say, within RTE, there's a movement away from that. And, they don't... they want to be a bit calmer and more measured, but there's no harm with a bit of madness at times.
Yeah, so thank you very much, sir.